Sunshine on the street, go. Sunshine on the street, she's always going to know. This time was fall. She is always sunshine. It's all sunshine, sunshine, when she goes, it's all she can go. Every time she was every time every time she goes, sunshine, when she goes, it's all she can go. Every time she
1, 2. Live from the Country Club in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. Ladies, gents, non-binaries, journalists, media practitioners, and attendees, welcome to the 2023 Media Freedom Festival. To welcome you all to tonight's happenings, please welcome Media Monitoring Africa's Nomshado Nkosinkulu.
Good evening. Okay, there you go. Mic check. I think that has been our thing for the last 3 days. I think we're here, day 3. We've all been leading up to this day, and I'd really like to express our gratitude for you sticking with us since day 1 till day 3 at our last event. So can you please give yourself a round of applause for attending all these events? Please, thank you very much. So today we're doing something special. We're introducing a new conversation that we haven't really done in our previous Media Freedom Festivals, right? The idea and the issue of whistleblowing. So as I said, and I've been, I think, alluding to this throughout the week, that today's format is a bit different. So we don't have a panel discussion at all. We're going to have amazing speakers who will set the scene for you. And we have amazing participants as well who will go through the game show. And I trust you not, there's a lot that is going to be in store for you guys. First of all, I'd like to thank our amazing, amazing partners. Wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. The German Embassy, SABC, and MDDA, and obviously Media Monitoring Africa. I think we came together to pull off something that really, really went well. We had amazing conversations throughout. And I think these are conversations that will definitely carry on in 2024. So I'm really hoping to see you guys here next year as well. I'm not going to take up a lot of time. My job here was purely just to introduce you of the evening. We have a little something to introduce our MC for the night. And I'm gonna call upon our amazing artist who's at the background. You'll meet him later to just do the introduction for our MC.
And now, joining us live on stage to lead tonight's program, please welcome SAFM host, SABC News anchor, and award-winning journalist, Aldrin Sampear.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I thought that there's going to be confetti, something, a bit of a croissant over here and over there, But thank you guys so much for having invited me to be part of this important conversation that will be taking place this evening. My name is Aldrin Sampear. I'm the host of Beyond the Headline on SF. Hey, colleague. So I'll be doing a lot of that. Hi, colleagues, former colleagues as well. My name is Aldrin Sampear. I'm the host of Beyond the Headline on SAFM. I literally just finished my show like 30 minutes ago and tried to make sure that I'm here on time, and I made it on time. So this weekend is a massive weekend. I hope that you'll also be watching, or at least supporting one of our national teams this weekend, whether it is the Springbokke, because you need to do it in Afrikaans. When you speak about rugby, you do it in Afrikaans. Yeah, van ons praat van die gees. And of course, then we have the Proteas. Some analysts believe that the Proteas won't be doing that well against England. I don't know what you think, but perhaps maybe from the spirit of South Africans, we'll be able to carry the Proteas to some level of victory. Look at Mr. Chris Vick. Hello, Mr. Chris Vick. Hello. You're very late, by the way. We are waiting for you. We are literally waiting for you. Once again, thank you so much for being part of this session that is going to look into the role of whistleblowers, but also some of the risks that whistleblowers face. When I was invited to come and MC, I put out the question and I asked followers on Twitter, which you whistleblow? And all of the responses were negative, that I will not do it because there are risks involved. And as somebody who's in the media space and who's been dealing with a lot of some of these stories, is one, you run the risk of losing your life. You also run the risk of losing a family member and perhaps maybe a finger. And then you also run the risk of losing your job. When I was in Germany for the media summit, one of the things that I said that is very important is sometimes when it comes to journalists, we speak about the death threats that journalists face, but we never really speak about the livelihood, the possibility of losing your own job, even as the journalist who is covering the story of corruption. So later on, there will be a scenario that will be played out here, some of familiar faces that you'll be seeing, dealing with some of those questions and some of the risks that are involved in covering some of these stories. And yeah, it is a difficult one, year in, year out. Come the election, we are told about corruption and how government is working to make sure that we deal with corruption. And then you have the whistleblowers who come out and say that, listen, this has happened in my company, but then they don't have the necessary protection that is required. I'm going to call on now to the podium the ambassador of Germany to South Africa, who I was saying that we were at the Oktoberfest not so long ago, that the ambassador is actually stalking me. Ambassador Andres Peshka, please come and join us.
Well, thank you very much, Aldrin. Ladies and gentlemen, friends of media freedom, Makosikazi Namadola. Good evening. Sanibonani. Ninjani. Nami Ngikona. So also from my side, welcome to this final event of this year's Media Freedom Festival. Namuke Likile. Mina Ngijabule ukuti Nina Nikona Lapa. Ngijabule ukuti Mina Ngikona Lapa. Ngoba abanga ukuthi li festival li balulekile kakhulu. So this is a very important festival, and that's why I'm happy to be here. So thank you to all of you for having made it for the last 3 days. Thank you all very much also to William Burt, to Nomshado, Lubisi, who was on stage just before, to Tandu Smith, and everybody from Media Monitoring Africa. I think they did very well, and they deserve a big round of applause. I would join you, but I'm, I cannot clap like this. Thank you also to SABC as the media partner, so Siani Bonga Nonke. So I think you have put together an amazing series of events covering many of the most pressing issues facing the media and consumers of media today. I followed the discussions closely. Christopher, my colleague, was here most of the time. And I think the topics you discussed, such as media literacy for youth and children, coverage of elections, AI and the media and hate speech, I think are very important. What we are going to discuss and witness tonight as we are approaching the close of the festival, the topic of the role and protection of whistleblowers, I think is also very important. It is important because I think whistleblowing is an essential part of democratic freedom. We had important whistleblowers everywhere. We had them here in South Africa. We also had them in Europe. I think many of you may be too young for that, but I think 10 years ago, we all remember Edward Snowden and the NSA affair. I was at the time the spokesperson of the Foreign Ministry of Germany. So, when all these news and whistleblowing broke, we had very difficult questions to answer as representatives of government, because it became public knowledge that the American NSA, which is the National Security Agency of the United States of America, had spied upon, and listened to telephone conversations secretly of our Chancellor, Angela Merkel, of the time. So now, what do you do with that? Such a revelation. I think Angela Merkel made a very famous comment. She said, spying among allies. And then she used a very typical for her German expression, das geht gar nicht. It's a no-go. So it sticks with Germans up until today. When we talk about Edward Snowden, when we talk about NSA, I think everybody would remember that comment by Angela Merkel. That is a totally no-go. And actually, this act of whistleblowing it shattered the foundation of trust between the US and Germany as very close allies. So it was a very important revelation. And I think it was very difficult also for state actors to come to terms with that revelation. So I think that is one angle to look at it. I'm going to talk about another one as well. Of course, in South Africa, you had the Zondo Commission with a report last year, and all that revelations about state capture and corruption in what happened in this country. And I think we need to be aware more than ever that people must speak out about the misuse and abuse of power. There can be no doubt about it. Yet, as has been mentioned, many whistleblowers pay a heavy price for doing so, physically, financially, socially, and emotionally. This Edward Snowden, I think he was sought after by an arrest warrant by the FBI. I think eventually he went to Moscow to ask for asylum. And, at least in my view, Russia is not the archetypical state of freedom or democratic freedom or any freedom. So he is there, and I think he also has relatives, ties, everything in the United States. Now he has to be in Moscow. So I think he paid a price for what he was doing. But I think any democratic society has to try and guarantee that its laws are abided by. There has to be accountability, not only for average citizens, but also for the government, for administration, and for big business. And if it were not for courageous people like Atul Williams or Babita Deokaran, South Africa or any other country would have much less a chance to uphold their rules and their laws. If we allow crimes like corruption to be committed in the dark, they will just grow. And it will hollow out the common good, which we call a democratic state. So at the opening of the festival, of the Media Freedom Festival, my colleague around here cited the German Constitutional Court. Media freedom is the cornerstone of democracy. Ama media adinga ukuzimela. Loko ku balulekile angiti. In our democracies, a free, independent media is indispensable for our democracy. But free, independent journalists also need information. Often they depend on whistleblowers when they are researching important stories. So indeed, I think as a society, we have to ask ourselves, are we doing enough to protect whistleblowers? What more could be done in order to save them from threats and real harm? So I'm looking forward to the discussion and to engaging with the experts and with all of you. Gizo Jabula, Ukulandela Ising and Okubonga Imi Bumela. So let's remember also what the former US president said. The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide. So thank you very much again to Media Monitoring Africa, all partners, and to all of you. And to wind up, looking forward to tomorrow, I would say Pambili, ama boko boko. Thank you very much. Ngiyabonga.
Well, at least we've got one country there that's supporting South Africa tomorrow. Amapogopogo to be specific. Did you realize that he didn't even mention the Proteas? I don't know if you read anything into that. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for those remarks, important remarks as well. And when we have the Q&A session and when we have the panel discussion, while listening to the Ambassador speaking about Edward Snowden, who's now in Moscow, I wonder whether there is also conversation to be had about the possibility of how a whistleblower can also be used as a pawn in a political battle. Because there is a possibility, as I believe that there is a possibility. We are now going to call on, what's happening? Hey, you know, when the director starts, when the director starts scratching the neck and something, you wonder whether that is a signal or not. We're going to call on Avani Singh now, who's an attorney of the High Court of South Africa, who specializes in constitutional law and also looking into what happens in the media space as well as the digital space. Avani?
Thank you so much, and good evening to our live audience participants for tonight's edition of Would You Blow the Whistle? Tonight, we have 3 great panelists, 2 experts, all of whom are going to be participating in our very exciting live pack game. We are going to be throwing questions to the audience. We are going to be seeking advice from our consultants and, you know, starting to tackle some of these really difficult questions that we hear or read about, but trying to bring them more to life. And to start us off, I'm going to ask Cynthia Stemple from Whistleblower House to set the context for us and tell us a bit more about how Whistleblower House works and was established.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here this evening. Today, I'm just here to cover what Whistleblower House is, their purpose, and the reason they're here. We know that through our Protected Disclosures Act in our country, there's been great anomalies and whistleblowers weren't truly protected. There was a huge gap in the market, and it was in this niche that a group of people came together to form Whistleblower House. And so I'm just going to cover it very quickly. I believe I've been given 10 minutes for that. So Whistleblower House was established last year, 2022, on the 22nd of February. The founders were, there we are, who we are. So because we wanted to fill a niche within the market, how do you protect whistleblowers? What is the loss and the repercussions that whistleblowers experience? And how does one then truly protect them? When you look at the legislation, it only looks at occupational detriment rather than the full holistic impact that it has on whistleblowers. We've heard earlier through the ambassador about Snowden, who had to lose his home. He can never go back to the States. We've got Ethel Williams that is currently in hiding in London and cannot come back to South Africa unless that risk is mitigated. And we don't know how it's going to be mitigated. So therefore, we have to see how do we assist. So just to quickly give you what we do, we support whistleblowers, we do advocacy, and we look at how do we acknowledge and celebrate whistleblowers. The importance is that most whistleblowers are in hiding or they lose their voices, they're unable to speak, and hence people don't even know who they are until something major happens, like an assassination. The Whistleblower House is mainly started because we wanted to assist, raise the public awareness, if I can just go through that quickly, illuminate the public, the criminal activities we've seen in the country. So therefore it means partnering with others and disrupting the networks that we've seen in the collusion that's happening currently. Our vision, to minimize the impact that whistleblowers experience. We want to provide the support on a holistic level, and we want to promote whistleblower mechanisms and support structures that can help them. That's our mission, enabling access for them collaborating with companies, advocating publicly, acknowledging whistleblowers. I won't go through every point. Our values: act with integrity, honesty, and transparency, execute with safety, sustainability, empowerment, mediate with compassion. The key thing is being able to speak to whistleblowers with compassion, providing the support. Our current team is Ivan Pillay, who was one of the key founders together with Liesel and Bianca Goodson. There's a bit of his background. He worked for SARS. He was also an activist. Dr. Liesel works for the Ethics Institute. She's also part of the founders currently on our board. And Bianca Goodson is the other person. Martha Ngoya, currently whistleblower of PRASA, is on our board. She has won her case through the Labour Court, through the CCMA, through disciplinary hearing, and yet the board of PRASA refuses to reinstate her. Sorry. Then there's Bianca Goodson. She's not there. That's me. I'm also a whistleblower with SAA. My background has been primarily in risk management and finance, and now I'm working to support whistleblowers. Ben Theron is our CEO currently. I think you've met with him, and we work together in supporting whistleblowers. We have key focus that we want to do and how we do it. The one is that we look at how do we get them legal support. The main issues that whistleblowers struggle is they don't have the finances. How do they get legal support? And so it's through that methodology, we've partnered with legal firms. How do we help? And we get them to give the legal support. We then look at psychological support. We've partnered with key clinical psychologists who can assist all our whistleblowers. Most of them can take on capacity of 10 whistleblowers at a time. Obviously, the sessions are once a week. And we found that this has been extremely beneficial. The repercussions with whistleblowers that once they've spoken out, the suffering, besides losing your job, the knock-on effect of not having the funds, further, how do you deal with issues? It affects your mental state, affects your physical state. Some people get so ill physically. Others obviously feel it, that they suffer this trauma. And so therefore, how do we help? And that's one of the key areas. We also focus on how do we give safety. We've partnered with an organization through an app called Aura, whereby we can have an armed response at your door when you're at the most vulnerable, leaving your home or arriving at your home. And so we've just launched that. We've given it to one whistleblower to test, and it will go out publicly to all our whistleblowers. That's our safety and security. Many we've put up into safe homes. We don't work the way the Whistleblower Protection Act works, where they put them in a safe house as such. We'd rather find a bed and breakfast for them that's highly secure and put the whistleblower there for a couple of months. We also offer financial support in that the finance whistleblowers, because they've lost money, can't work, cannot earn, they run into debt, cannot pay school fees, cannot pay anything. So we're providing that finance for the whistleblowers. And I think that's us in a nutshell. Thank you very much.
Cynthia, thank you so much to you and to Whistleblower House for the incredible work that you do and for sharing that about you, sorry. Can I please now invite our participants onto stage? Let me please first invite Cynthia, who you have just met, who is going to be one of our experts for the evening. Cynthia, will you join us on stage? To be joined by Chris Fick, who is the owner at Black, a media strategist firm and very steeped in these kinds of very important and complex questions. Welcome, Chris. Hello. And if I call you Vic through the night, I am sorry. It is because it's William's fault for that. Okay. Then let me invite up onto stage Karabo Rajuli, who is the country, we can go over, yeah. The director of country programs at Open Ownership. And I will in a moment introduce to you the role that Karabo is going to be playing this evening. Second, please allow me to introduce Ibrahim Fakir, who is a political analyst, columnist, author, and who will be representing the private sector in tonight's discussion. Oh, and then last but not least, we have Tsidi Madea, the Associate Editor of Politics at Eyewitness News, who is going to be representing the journalism sector this evening. Welcome. All right, everyone. The rules of the game, pretty simple. The considerations, very complex and challenging, and the consequences, life-threatening. Today, our three participants, Karabo, Ibrahim, and Tsidi, are going to be representing different whistleblowers faced with a particular set of facts. And as we go through the process, see how those facts can morph, escalate, and the real life dangers that this can come into play. I'm going to begin by giving you a little scenario that you are going to be that we are going to be working off, as well as their particular roles in this scenario. Our participants also have two lifelines. Each of them can use Ask the Expert lifeline, targeted to Cynthia and Chris, or Ask the Audience, in which case we are going to be looking to you to tell us whether or not they should take the step forward and should they blow the whistle. So picture this for a moment, not an unusual scenario, and saddeningly and infuriatingly, something we hear of more and more. The local municipality of Phumelela has been rife with allegations of financial misconduct and malfeasance for over 5 years now. Even though there's been a municipal manager appointed as of the middle of last year, following direct recommendations from the Auditor General's office, the reality is that these concerns have not abated. The municipality has identified infrastructure development as being one of the key concerns and priority areas for the municipality, specifically upgrading roads, access networks, and housing. And to do so, following an open procurement process, the municipality has awarded a tender to the Build Fast Business Consortium in the amount of 75 million rand. So that's where we begin. And so first, let me please introduce you to Karabo. Karabo is a manager in the municipal manager's office who's responsible for processing payments once they have been authorized. Karabo is diligent and hardworking, but Karabo is about to come across some concerning information. Ibrahim is an employee at the Build Fast Consortium, part of the private company that has been awarded the tender, whose job designation is described as community liaison. In this often quite vague title, Ibrahim's roles and tasks tend to be quite extensive, fitting into the needs of any particular day, but essentially trying to bring along the community, or at least assisting the municipality and Build Fast to get through their activities with as little fuss as can be possible. And lastly, we have Tsidi, a recognized, well-established investigative journalist working at an online news publication, primarily focusing on Phumelela and other surrounding municipalities. Tsidi is known for her intrepid coverage and has, in a number of occasions, exposed corruption and malfeasance in the municipality, but has paid the price in terms of death threats, harassment, and so on for her work as a journalist in this capacity. All right, everybody, are you ready to play? Blow the whistle. All right, Karabo, let's start with you. So since May 2023, you tell us that you began to notice certain duplicate payments being made by the municipality to the Build Fast Consortium under the heading of community engagement. It struck you as odd because these don't correspond with the budget or the payment schedule that you have been provided with. Now, you've raised it with your municipal manager, but you were told to get back to work and focus on doing the job at hand. As you began to look into this further, you became more and more aware that this double payment under the heading of community engagement was, in fact, seemingly going to the local Phumelela Business Forum. Why? With your senior, what do you do?
Thanks, Avani, but I thought I should share more about who I am and why this is so important to me. So I've been working in municipal government, local government for the last 20 years, and I've got a passion for numbers and books and just doing things right. I've got a large extended family who I care about deeply, but ultimately all I want to be able to do is to do my job well, and I try and do the best that I can to the best of my ability. I recently got a promotion, and this is a job that I'm in right now, and I was very excited. The community has been celebrating me. My family has been celebrating me, and I thought that was really going to be a moment for me to advance my career. And so as I've been looking at the books and looking at these double payments, I became really concerned that this looks like something that is irregular. Two, we're not a very wealthy municipality. We've got a lot of development issues. We need roads that need to be built. We need proper schools for our children. This is not happening. I raised it with my line manager. As I was told to do, I read the handbook for my local government that said, if you think that something is wrong, raise it with your line manager. That's what you should do. And I was told that I'm not seeing correctly. It's because I'm new at the job. I don't know whether I should speak out. I've heard from colleagues who have been here for longer than I have that others who have spoken out have simply disappeared. My local municipality is also known for political killings. I don't know. This has never been a situation that I've been in before. And to be honest, I'm a little bit scared and a little bit confused. So right now, I don't know whether I want to blow the whistle.
Karabo, would you like to ask the audience already at this stage?
Not right now. I'm feeling quite vulnerable, and I think I might pause before asking the audience.
Very good. Thank you very much, Karabo. Abraham, you find yourself in not an entirely dissimilar position, but coming from the private sector lens of it. You are a well-known executive as part of the Buildfast Consortium. And in fact, being the community liaison, your face has been linked as the integral part of bringing this community development to the Pumela municipality. Now, on a number of occasions, it's been brought to your attention that through the business forum, the members of your workers and your staff have been facing a number of threats in their attempt to go to work and conduct their day-to-day jobs. But this has now reached a head for you because your workers are now, in fact, threatening to down tools and cause significant delays if the company does not step in to offer them some kind of protection. You've now raised this with your seniors. You've taken it to the EXCO and you've pointed out this concern both from your workers and this increasing demand that you seem to be receiving from the business forum. And then we're told by the EXCO that while this may in fact be what's taking place, you were responsible for managing that relationship. You are the face of any corrupt activities taking place with the business forum or any allegations of this that might be sniffed. And so now it's your problem to deal with it. What do you do?
Not a very difficult problem to deal with, because I do what people in the private sector do. I call in the strong man or other strong men, and I put the business forum in their place, telling them, you've got what was meant to be due to you. You have everything you have. At the same time, I take the Buildfast workers through the collective bargaining process, telling them all our contractual obligations have been met to them, and they don't have anything to actually complain about. Hopefully, and in all likelihood it will, because we've told the business forum, you've got what you want. We might cut you into another 3% for the next 6 months. That's because I've made the calculations with EXCO that paying the 3% to the business forum makes rational sense, because the profiteering that we will get is going to far exceed the 3%. So not a very difficult problem to deal with, because I'm a rational actor. I'm a rational actor in the private sector. And what does the rational actor do? Maximize profit, minimize cost.
Cost of doing business?
And that's what we'll write it off to.
Chris, can I ask you to jump in here and tell us, we've heard this very cogent response from Abraham. What are in practice some of the challenges that you're seeing when these kinds of business forums, mafia groups, intimidation and harassment begins to run rife with these kind of public-private sector partnerships?
I think I would never say Abraham is naive, right? It's not naive at all. But I think the complexities of community politics in towns where there is very little economic activity, those complexities make it much harder to think of a linear solution such as we'll cut you in further down the line. I think the second issue, and I the last time I was in government, which is when my hair went white, I did some work in Diepsloot with a minister who slept in a shack, just to give you a clue. And he wanted to invest huge amounts of money in Diepsloot. And we encountered 4 different community business forums. One was aligned to the Communist Party, one to the Youth League, one to the ANC, and one to COSATU. So that's why I'm saying it's not that linear. The other difficulty is those local economies are so depressed that often the only way you can get into the economy is through politics, through becoming a ward councillor or becoming somebody who's got access to procurement and tenders. That dimension is very real. The third dimension is because those economies are depressed, these days you can pick up a hitman for $150, right? And that puts whistleblowers, it's a different kind of risk to Cynthia's. And I would never undermine what Cynthia did. I mean, I think you're incredibly brave. But blowing the whistle in an SOE where you got national attention compared to blowing the whistle in a community where everyone knows who everyone is and everyone knows where they live, and you're going to stand in the middle and say, well, go away, I'll give you 3% further down the line. It's much more complex than that.
And so I'm coming back to you with that in mind. You have put forward 3%. It seems like a reasonable cost of doing business. You are told that there will be no meeting of minds unless 20% or more is agreed upon. Your superiors are washing their hands of this and saying, this is your responsibility. It's been a note to you that the addresses of your family, where your children go to school, are known, but no more detail provided than that. Are you ready to blow the whistle yet?
I'm still not ready to blow the whistle, largely because you haven't given me a whistle to blow. Of course, there's multiple different stakeholders and interest groups and all of those who are involved in this, and they all want a slice of the pie. And some of them work against each other. But at some point, that doesn't become my business. And typically what has happened in this country, which is what I will do, I would actually call in the Zinkabi because I have them on my payroll. That's not far-fetched. That's a reality, okay? Those guys or women, or well, whatever they identify as, they still isn't Kabi. And they will still carry out the job that's needed. But there are other multiple calculations, right? And these calculations go back to the point I made earlier. At what cost does satisfying all of these different interest groups come to? And if that cost exceeds what it's going to cost me or my company, then I make a slightly different calculus. And I then go to the directors and we level with the directors about what the problems are. And we then either do one of two things. We either go to the municipality and we renegotiate a contract, which is again, not far-fetched. And that factors in the question of price escalation. And that's not new. I mean, the Zondo Commission report is replete with examples of massive price escalation. And if the municipality is agreeable, which by all indications they are, because they've already got double payments, we can see it in the books. So they're agreeable, we renegotiate the contract. And if the contract is not negotiable, we will simply pull out. So, and we can. Who has been to Limpopo here and has not seen unfinished bridges or collapsed bridges, or have seen earmarked projects which have never even broken ground, which have never even broken soil. Now, I know that some of these scenarios are fairly stark, but the reality is this is what is happening in the country.
CD, you as an investigative journalist operating in the municipality, known for your courageous reporting, have also taken a lot of strain over the past few years in breaking certain stories that have been brought to you by confidential sources, whistleblowers, and so on. It's not only taken a strain on you personally with the harassment and threats that you have received, it has also included your children being followed on their way to school, your editors' offices being raided, and numerous other such instances. Your family, your editor, those around you who care about you have urged you to take a back seat and report on more general politics, as opposed to, also incredibly important, as opposed to these very specific and potentially life-threatening stories that you have been working on in the past. But you start to receive calls, emails, dribs of information coming your way about potential corrupt practices taking place within the Mpumalelo municipality to do with their tender with Buildfast Consortium. Initially, you think best to hand it off to a different journalist, someone else in the news team who can look into it, but it becomes clear that whoever's providing you with this information wants to deal with you specifically because of your reputation and background. Your editor is encouraging you not to take it. At this stage, you don't have enough information to know whether or not there is something worth investigating, but the information looks credible and gives rise to credible concern. What is your next step?
I'm sorted. I am frazzled, right? I'm exhausted. I am a little bit vulnerable because I've been through the ringer with the work. So I think I must first paint a scenario about my newsroom. In a local municipality, chances are we have no resources, we have no talent, we've possibly interns, very young journalists who might be eager, but not know what it means to put a story together, let alone to investigate some of the claims that are being sent my way. I am frazzled. I need to keep remembering that it's been a traumatic period doing this job, and my editor feels I should actually park. I might have a slow approach towards the information coming my way. I might look at it from a distance for a while, but recognizing that the person trusts me and no one else, I will want to suss out the person too, along with information, to understand who am I. I need to build a trust relationship. So that's what I'll start focusing on, is making that person feel secure, building our own little bubble where them and I share information and I understand the context. As a journalist, what I often do, I cover mostly politics, and I always say to people, there's always an agenda somewhere. Let me get the context of why we are here at this point in time. So I understand where the story needs to go, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve. So I would understand the person. I think that trust is so important when somebody's trying to blow the whistle. So I want to make them feel like they're in a bubble. I will tell my boss what's unfolding. They might say it's not the ideal thing for me to do, but at every turn, every shock, everything that comes my way, I will inform my boss so they're aware. And then I will share the workload, because I know I'm frazzled. I know I should keep some distance. Yes, they trust me, but I can delegate. I can take a young person in the newsroom that I trust, an individual. They don't need to know my source. They just need to investigate certain aspects of the story. If the information is credible, there are multiple ways to go and pick and prod at what it could possibly be. I could start having a young journalist going to the business forums and sniffing around a little bit and coming back with information. We could go for lunches and have conversations with the face of the organization. I could start also trying to sniff a little bit more at the municipality. I would have a network of resources by this time. I've done it before. I'll start tapping into what is it that you know. And also the demand for documents for me is crucial. The stuff that you've sent, I need more. And also just going through the trove of information, I'll start trying to see what are the easy wins as well. And also what can be done to stretch out the story. But again, this person who's maybe coming to me might have a family, so I need to be mindful of the consequences and what needs to happen with that person's protection. I'd go to my editor for guidance. I'd go to law enforcement even for guidance, but I am mindful at every turn that if somebody's blowing the whistle in a municipality, in a small municipality, the tentacles between the politicians and law enforcement are possibly very visible, very present. So you are, I think I'm just very mindful at every step, extremely cautious, if I may. Yeah.
And so can I ask you to jump in there? Perhaps just touching on two things. One is that we know, in the context of this discussion specifically, we're looking at what happens when you approach the media as one avenue, but maybe you can touch on for us also what sort of the other avenues are. And when you are approaching any one of whichever avenue you choose, including the media, what some of the cautions, risks, or kind of protective mechanisms you want to keep in mind?
Approaching the media to be a potential risk in some media. Main reason being that we have in the country, which is the Protected Disclosures Act, which specifically does not entertain going to the media. Most organizations in their own policies, internal policies, will exclude you from going to the media. So it's really important when whistleblowers come to the media that yes, the story gets out, but that their name is kept anonymous, because that way the life of that whistleblower, its ensuing livelihood by the employment is protected. I think media plays a key role in getting the story out, because how else then, if they've gone through the right channels and trying to report and unable to do so, so media plays a key role. Other avenues of reporting, according to our Protected Disclosures Act, is obviously going to the Auditor General. Most people go there, especially if they're in the financial. Others that will go to the Public Protector. You can use any of the state, the Chapter 9 organizations like the South African Human Rights Commission, and many other avenues. The updated or is amended Public Protected Disclosures Act was to report it to a lawyer as well, or anyone that can do something about the event. Most organizations want you to report internally. That is a risk in itself, because when you report internally, and if it's about your boss or about your board or about your executive, that information can easily be pushed aside, and therefore the reprisal to the whistleblower, where you start seeing the retaliation, you can see the harassment, and sooner or later they are then without a job.
Thank you so much for that context. So Karabo, coming back to you now, you have found in speaking to your superior that payments don't seem to be crossing your desk as often. It has now been handed over to other people. You're just not, your workload has diminished, which your boss says you should be happy about. But actually, in reviewing the kind of promotion and contract renewal processes, it becomes clear to you that your job may now be in jeopardy because you simply aren't performing the functions that you were initially asked to do. Speaking to your supervisor says, well, there are more experienced people who are coming to the fore. You haven't noticed anything. There hasn't been any reason for performance review. The only indication that you can have, or that seems to come to mind, is the previous conversation that you had with your superior officer. You've also, at the same time, become aware, anecdotally at the very least, of more instances of these payments being made, increased, and pressure being put on your other colleagues to turn a blind eye. What's going through your head at this point?
Avani, the last time we spoke, I was feeling a little confused, vulnerable, but now I'm feeling angry. I know that I'm good at my job. The last performance review, I got completely excelling in my performance. I've been told that other people need to grow in the organization to worry me as well, which are making me angry. I'm getting odd messages as if somehow what I'm doing, the calls that I'm making, it seems like people know who I'm talking to and what I'm talking to them about. Another thing that's become really complicated has been a close family member of mine, an uncle, came to me to say, we as a family have been for decades loyal supporters of our local political party. And this is important to us. And you need to understand that there's certain things which happen here to make sure that this party stays in place. And one of the things that happens here is that the Business Forum is a friend of the government. And these things that I'm beginning to talk about, this friendship is going to get hurt. And I need to respect this friendship. My uncle wasn't clear about what he meant by the friendship, but all I can think is maybe the Business Forum is paying the local party. I don't know, but it seems very, very odd. But I'm at a dilemma because on the one hand, I know that my job looks like it's at risk. On the other hand, my family is saying to me, I'm basically interfering with how things are. And this is just the way that things are always going to be in our local community. I'm also getting scared that maybe I might be at risk as well. But the big question that I've really got is, one of the things that a colleague said to me is, you think that you're trying to do something good here, but you're not. Things are always going to be like this. You might want to try and change things, but it's not going to change anything. It's always going to be like this. So my question to the audience today is, if I blow the whistle, will it really change anything?
By a show of hands, will it change anything? Who thinks it will? Okay. More and more, and for those who don't, is that the remainder? So if you were in Karabo's shoes, would you blow the whistle? Who says yes? And the no's? All right, Karabo, we're back to you. Has this helped you make your decision at all? And if so, which mechanism do you think you would want to pursue? Which mechanism or mechanisms do you think you'd want to pursue?
I've tried the official policy. Like I said before, I tried following the policy, reporting to my line manager, and now it seems like I'm facing repercussions and I'm worried and I'm angry. Although I've got a promotion, this is not a well-paying job. I don't have a lot of financial resources. I've got children's school fees to pay. I've got responsibilities, and I'm not sure who to approach. I heard that there's this local media, a local newspaper that I can maybe approach, and there's a really fantastic journalist there. I don't know them. I've never interacted with them. Again, I've never done this before. So I'm not really sure what my options are. I don't want to lose my job. I don't have enough to pay for a lawyer. I'm just at a local municipality. This is not a big story in the national news on the big SAFMs. Aldrin is not talking about my municipality. So I don't know right now. I'm stuck in a dilemma of, is this going to be worth it if I try and make the first step? I'm thinking of maybe approaching the media, but I'm not sure whether that's the safe route. And it would be helpful for me if I got some kind of expert advice first before putting myself at risk.
But the advice I would give you is that to approach the Whistleblower House, their newly structured organization, where they will assign legal firm to you who will give you guidance on how to make a truly protected disclosure that will help you then keep your job and do it in such a way that you cannot be victimized or harassed. So that's one option. Obviously, going to the media is about getting your story. What you could do is a combination whereby you can get the story out, but they must work together with the legal team to ensure that the story doesn't just get out before you have launched your fully protected disclosure, and that it only happens afterwards. And that you now can talk to your organization and say, I have made, when you're disclosing, I have made a protected disclosure, therefore I cannot be touched, my job, I cannot suffer a detriment, my family must be protected, I should still have my income. The company would probably offer you counseling because you're in this dilemma which frustrates you, and you probably are suffering where you cannot sleep and you're worried about this going through your mind all the time. So I would recommend that. The key thing is about being safe, watching yourself, which you can do is personally make sure that all your documentation is in a safe place, and that you don't go talking to everyone. Most whistleblowers tend to just talk, having coffee, would just say, oh, I've decided to whistleblow. Just keep that quiet, make sure you've done it in such a right way that you are truly protected. Someone else can say, do you know Karaba's going to do this? So before you've even done your disclosure, the news is out. So find ways of protecting your summation and how you do it.
Thanks. I mean, I guess my question to Karabo is, did you think of the complexities around this notion of whistleblowing? Because there are problems within where you work. Maybe you try and double check with someone else. You don't know if they're in on the corruption or not. Maybe you talk to a local priest or someone like that. You just don't know. And I think what Cynthia's outlined is, it's such an unknown journey. You started off saying, is it worthwhile? Which is the sort of end of the journey, really. There's all those wobblies along the way, which are really, really challenging. And I think because this is a discussion about the media, there's also the reality that the journalist is in on the thing, right? Tidi knows how I feel about the state of ethics in journalism at the moment. It's rough. There are people who take bribes. So you go to Tidi with the information. She phones the business forum. They say, here's $10,000, or here's a sex tape of the mayor, and just changes the process completely. It's such a complicated thing. I mean, this is why I salute the whistleblowers and Whistleblower House, because that journey, and it can end in death. But I mean, it's just such a massive leap to take, because you are dependent on so many other people and things and processes.
Ebrahim and Sid, I'm going to ask you two more questions, and then we're going to go into what we're going to call a quick fire round, where the situation begins to escalate quickly. Ebrahim, you are woken up early in the morning by a flood of phone calls from people you work with, the media, and so on. Your phone is ringing off the hook because a story has broken that you, in fact, have been engaged in all manner of untoward behavior. There are images of you in compromising positions, allegations of sexual harassment being made, a range of indications that you have been mismanaging funds for a number of years, including that you have individually been engaging with the business forum yourself, unbeknown to the company, in order to make sure that you yourself were getting benefits from the construction taking place. You are now, wrongly or rightly, the scapegoat for all of this. Your family doesn't know what to do. You don't know what to do. You are now in this position where you are a little bit on the outside to where you were yesterday, when you still had the negotiating power. What's going through your mind, and where do you go next?
So it's not unusual. My phone is often ringing off the hook. I'm frequently in compromising positions. The one thing I haven't been accused of yet is sexual harassment. So let's park that aside.
I'm happy to leave that one out. My apologies.
But the other two are great. Now, here's the third thing. This idea that my directors are not in on it and they have no idea, and I've been negotiating deals on the side. I mean, that's just unrealistic. You know, me and the directors, we're tight. The very reason they created this job was specifically tailor-made for me. I mean, community liaison. I'm dealing with the media, I'm dealing with the community, I'm dealing with the local construction mafia, as you guys call it. Meanwhile, they're just my chomies. Okay? I deal with government, both local, provincial, and national. I'm just the kingpin. So this idea that the directors are not in on this whole thing is a little far-fetched. Let me just tell you, the truth is the directors are very in on it, and they have to pretend, particularly in directors' reports and so on, that this is not in fact the case. Now, if the heat gets too much, I choose a destination in which there's no extradition treaty, because I've built up the resources to do so. And I do this with the acquiescence of the directors. They were like, yeah, dude, you go. We'll hook you up the kids will be hooked up with schools wherever. I was going to say it starts with the D, but I won't enunciate it. And so there. What if, I were just a community liaison officer, which is actually not that high profile a job. I'm not in such an influential position. I'm a facilitator, not a fixer. I'll leave out the third F. So I'm either a facilitator or I'm a fixer. If I'm merely a facilitator, at this point, I got to make a real make a real decision. Do I resign and get the hell out of this entire thing? Or do I stay because I still have 3 kids, a wife, extended family, parents, black tax, and so on? So these positions are incredibly invidious, but in all likelihood, I'm probably not the facilitator, I'm actually the fixer. And if I am the fixer, we see this thing through and we ram it. Just by the way, one disclaimer, I'm saying all of this because I'm acting. It's not really what I...
That is an incredibly important point that everyone here is representing their characters.
And if I'm acting, remember, if I'm acting, right, I can simply get out of the acting position and say, I'm done. Let someone else do this thing now. The heat is on. And guess what? The directors are probably going to agree.
But Ibrahim, what happens when the directors disown you? They didn't know what you were doing behind the scenes. They had no knowledge of it and they were not in any of the meetings with you.
Right, so that starts to change the facts, right? And if that's the case, what I do is I take my money, I cut my losses, and I resign.
And is that the end of the road? Is that how you see it?
And that could be the end of the road, depending on whether I can flee somewhere else and go somewhere else, or whether I can't, or whether I'm keyed in to the how do I say this without being pejorative? I'm not going to mention any names, but we know that there are deep networks of organized, and those people are prepared to protect you at a cost, of course. But if I've built up the reserves to afford those costs, that's what I'll do. The Western Cape, by the way, is replete with this kind of thing.
Abraham, is there any scenario in which you, in your acting position as the fixer, with your financial resources, would ultimately feel that blowing the whistle was the moment had come to blow the whistle?
If I started down the road of unethical conduct, it's fairly unlikely that I will have a dawning realization that actually the ethics matter. I mean, this is South Africa after all. Tatama chance.
Cynthia and Chris, maybe you can jump in there. Is there a moment at which somebody who has been involved in the activities, whether it has been at the behest of a superior or knowingly throughout the process, comes to terms with the reality that this is no longer conduct that this person would like to perpetuate or continue with? Is there a moment? Is there a way? Do you have any advice for what this looks like in reality if this glory moment pans out?
Here we go. There are moments where people have, and it's their conscience that speaks to them. So I'll talk about Angelo Grizzi. If you read about his story, he was very involved in corruption, and it was a moment in change in his life where he was in hospital when he realized that he cannot continue what he's been doing. And that's when he decided to disclose. And his method of, or the process he used was disclosing at the State Capture Commission, the Zondo Commission. There's many others that have been involved to a certain extent and realize, and I think it's either they realize there's the family, there's something that's bugging them internally, their conscience is pricking them, and then they can disclose. Is there a remedy? Can they get away with it? We don't know yet, because the law needs to take place and run its course. What we've seen with Mr. Gritzi was that he has been charged. Others are still being investigated. It comes out very strongly in the Sonder Commission about the various people that have been implicated in certain decision-making, signing off and getting payouts, and then now wanting to say that they knew about it and wanted to disclose. Many, though, did not want to disclose, but were found out through investigations and now want to change their story around. And this brings us to the moral and ethics, that how ethical are we in conducting ourselves, and what sort of moral compass do we have that we follow within ourselves? So it is quite a difficult scenario, and many still go on the tightrope line and will not disclose and find ways of how they can save their souls.
Didi, so you have now been approached by Karabo. Karabo has credible evidence. It has been a very difficult. And you have now had sight of certain of the documents that Karabo has been able to provide you with. You realize, though, that certain of these documents, Karabo is not, in fact, authorized to provide you with. And so there are certain ramifications in publishing these documents. Your editor is still not certain about this. Your editor says we do not have the resources to conduct a wide-scale investigation. In fact, this project is key to local development, and there are concerns from your editor that Karabo is, in fact, disgruntled and somebody who is being favored or paid off by a competing elements. Of course, this isn't the end of the line for you. Of course, there are many more considerations, but what are the high-level questions you begin to ask yourself and the high-level questions you begin to ask as part of the whistleblower and the investigation in making your determination?
Okay, there we go. I think the biggest question for me would be, at what cost? This information is before me. I get it out at what cost, ultimately? Is it worth going to the courts to try and get the information made public? What are the risks that I'm taking? There was I'm going to use the example of the treasure trove from the trove of information from the Guptas. Decisions that to be made about what do you do? Lots of media houses had that. What do you do? Is it in the best interest of the public? So I'll make those decisions. My job has been risked before. I will probably make a play for it again if I think it's the correct move, but I can always go to the courts and try and get it, get the classified information and declassified. So there are avenues, but I will also, again, mostly gauge what is best for that little community. Is it best for them to know what's been happening and then we'll just deal with the repercussions later? I'm in the media. I think I'm acting in the best interest of these people. That is also an option I would consider, I'll be honest, is that I'll think about what is best for the people versus going to the courts and how long it will take me. If I'm going to go try to get the information declassified, how long will that take? What risk does it pose to my whistleblower as well? Because as this is happening with the courts, it's public records. Like eventually somebody somewhere hears. Chris said earlier, you actually don't know when the networks are, when the story is so convoluted, who's corrupted, who isn't, who's in on it and who isn't. So that's also a risk when you go to the courts, that actually now there's public record, somebody somewhere might say something, and tomorrow we have to run a story about how Karabo is dead. So I'll think about how to navigate that. I'll take the risk again of, is it best if it's out there? And then we'll just, let the chips fall and deal with the consequences. Yeah.
Massive judgments being made together with the whistleblower. So lastly, just a quick fire round. Let's see. What do you think? Karabo, you have made the decision to go forward and provide information and engage with CD. Leaving your first meeting outside of the Spur based in Pumalelo, as you were driving home, you realize that there are 2 black vehicles driving behind you. They are following in close course and drive all the way up to your front gate and continue and then drive beyond. Does this change your view in terms of whether or not you would like to continue to blow the whistle?
It's complicated. It's sometimes life puts you on a path that you actually can't change. And what's happened since making the disclosure to the journalist, and to be honest, I didn't have a lot of advice about doing this, but I went ahead because I felt like circumstances were building in that direction. I know that I'm probably going to lose my job at this point. I've heard rumors in the office, people are looking at me strangely. I'm no longer even spoken to within the office. I'm persona non grata. My phone has constantly got messages which are threatening me. And I know that maybe this is the last thing I can do, which can bring about good. The complication for me is that I've also been told that I'm not completely innocent in all of this. My name appears in documentation. I'm also appearing in pictures with individuals. I also appear in pictures with this community liaison person who I didn't know was involved in all of these dealings. So it looks like my hands are not clean. My only option now is to continue along this path, pray my family remains safe, because my biggest concern is no longer me. My biggest concern is my family, the people that I care about. I hope that this does make a difference in some small or big way, but to be quite honest, I don't know whether it will. But here I am, and I'm going to continue along this path. But I'll be very honest, this is now beginning to ruin my life, and my anxiety levels have heightened. I don't sleep at night anymore. I don't know who my friends are. I don't know who my enemies are. The black cars are just one signal of people following me. The entire community seems like it's following me.
You've given me chills, literal chills. Evan, so you have decided that you are going to go along with the flow, but it comes to light that someone else, a senior executive within the entity, within the consortium, has approached the public protector. You don't know who it is, you don't know what is being said, but it would appear that someone else has decided to blow the whistle. In the meantime, directly with respect to the business forum. Your calls are now not being answered by your senior executives, as much as you have been friends and chummies in the past. Suddenly, these seem to be only fair weather friends, although you can't be sure what will happen next. You are either in the process of booking your flight to a country that may or may not begin with D, or you have other options. Where do you ultimately land on this?
First question is, depends who the public protector is. It does. And that's the reality. Because remember, go back to the point that I'm the rational actor. The rational actor is making constant calculations about what is the possibility and the likelihood of this public protector actually calling this out. Or, as Chris has said, might there be people in the public protector's office or the public protector, him or herself, be involved in this whole thing. So, I don't know, right? So now my calculations are entirely dependent on who the public protector is. If it's someone who I know is competent, faithful, sincere,
then to be honest with you, I'll park it. I'll go back to my source. I mean, she'll go into a flurry of panic. But remember, the commitment I'd made was trust first and foremost. So I want to move from that premise at all times. So I'll go back to my source. And I'll even say to my source, there are other ways for me to navigate this. And I look at it, there are multiple angles to every story we come across. There's different ways to bring information to the fore. I could completely go in a different direction. I can target him. I can target the directors who might want, I can get something on the director to get him to change, to switch from being aligned to the fixer. There's other ways to get the story, to skin a cat, so to say. I would not want to put my source's life at risk. It was already a massive risk coming to me. So I would do everything possible to try and protect my source.
Right, so that brings us to a close of tonight's edition of Would You Blow the Whistle? Please give our three participants a big round of applause. As well as to our two experts on the panel who gave us their valuable insights. Thank you, Cynthia and Chris. I'm going to ask, sorry, Alvin, you are going to come up and do the last round of Q&A, but just to say from this side that as we go through this, there is no gainsaying how important and complex and difficult, and try to figure out who is or isn't or would ever be a winner or loser is just something so beyond the realm of anything. But for anyone who is brave enough to be in that position, whatever you ultimately decide to do, the fact that you are making these decisions is something that I am incredibly impressed by and look forward to seeing more.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Avani. Well done, well done, well done. We are going to open up for Q&A now. Do we have a roving mic? Do we have a roving mic? Do we have a roving mic? Okay, we're going to try and see if we can get a roving mic. I just quickly want to say that with each and every contribution from each and every panelist here, I've got so many questions. One, with TD, for me, it is as a journalist who has to cover this particular story. How do you, because at the end of the day, it's also about your career, right? And you want to advance your career as a journalist. You want to be that journalist that gets the scoop. You know, you want to be that journalist that gets to cover the big stories. But on the other end, you also want to protect your source. At which point does it become it's about me? Speaks to the conscience. Karabo, the same thing. Sure, I have a family that I need to take care of. I have children. I have a job. There's a livelihood issue here as well. When do I say I'm willing to take the bullet? Ibrahim, when you say beyond the pay. But when you all of a sudden then want to blow the whistle, is it really it's my conscience that's speaking to me? Or is it, I've messed up? Can I use the word? I fucked up. And I'm now fucked up. Cynthia, I don't know how you guys do what you do. We're going to go to the floor quickly. Do we have a hand? Okay, before we go, Cynthia, can you just quickly answer that question? Just short answer. Why do you do what you do?
Okay, the main reason I'm doing it is because when I whistle-blew, there was no support for me. And I found that obviously there's this huge gap, and I reached out to other whistleblowers and found that they suffered similarly, and hence the reason I'm doing it. My goal is to build ethical societies. We taught values as children in our homes. How do we carry those values out places and at schools, universities, etc. So I would like to leave a legacy for my grandchildren and my children. I don't want us to continue having this lawless society that we faced with, a society that's lost its moral compass. So my purpose, my personal purpose as Cynthia, is to leave a legacy, to work towards educating to more ethical societies. And as Whistleblower House, our main mandate is to support whistleblowers and to minimize the impact on whistleblowers, but also to effect change at organizations where it affects corruption, that can start be managing and reduced, and that there can be consequences and that people will be held accountable.
And they should be held accountable. But then you get to an NPA and you might just find somebody, as Chris was saying, who is also in the game, And sometimes we spin whatever information has been made public to try to get the corruptor out of trouble. And we use the media for that as well. The very same media that was used to expose the corruption is the very same media that will be used in the story around. Any hands quickly? Okay, we've got a hand there at the back, and then we'll come over here. So just quickly introduce yourself and please be brief with the question or comment.
No worries. A very good evening to everyone that's here. My name is Sinemi Vuyombulu. I am from the VoiceOver Factory, one of South Africa's most groundbreaking voiceover communities. If you believe you've got the voice and the right person to talk to. Cool. My question to the panel, I just wanted to know, does becoming a journalist not necessarily mean that you are becoming a professional whistleblower? Because any story written can cause harm or be considered a threat, because every story reveals certain information or exposes certain information. So who are the real whistleblowers? Is it journalists who write these stories? Is it the media? Is it sources that expose information? Who are the real whistleblowers? Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then we're going to get a question over here. Tidi, do you want to answer that quickly? Yep.
Thank you. I actually think it's collaborative effort, if you may. You know, I've never called journalists whistleblowers, but I do think that it takes a certain level of bravery to step up and to reach out to somebody to see something wrong and to say, look, something is wrong and this is what it is. I think we spent a lot of time here speaking about the risk that the person who is seeing the false information puts herself in. So there's no question for me that in essence, those are the real whistleblowers. But I know that there is an element where, and I think part of the scenario planning was, as a journalist, you've also gone through harassment over ABCDE. So you also run that risk. In your commitment to getting the story out, you also place yourself at risk. But remember, there is a so-called greater good that we're trying to work towards in building a society, which is where, for me, there is a collaboration. You must want somebody who sees something wrong, but you must also be an enabling instrument and vessel that wants to help bring that out in order to effect change somewhere. I hope that helps.
Thank you. And as we know, for every investigative piece, there is actually a whistleblower behind it.
Sanbonani, my name is Sipati, the wife of one of the victim, which is Mr. Thabo Tholone. And I think most of you, even Chris, you know our story. We are also being victimized because of being whistleblowers, you know. That's why even now I can't even talk. Our assets were taken because of the companies that we exposed are very influential, untouchable, funding everyone. So we've been fighting this matter. Chris, you know our matter. We've been fighting, we've been everywhere. Human Rights Commission, everywhere, even the public protector. So immediately when you start mentioning the name of the company, everyone turns their back on you, including the same media. On Wednesday, I was here when it's Dinesh, when she was saying that it's time to raise funds, to engage the private companies to get funds for the election. You know, this for us, it's so sad because the same companies, the same culprits that are oppressing us, they're funding those people or those companies, those organizations that's supposed to protect us from the government, from the church leaders, from the politicians, even the same media. Our story was once on the special assignment. The sensitive part was censored, were taken out. You know, when you watch this, the special assignment, they don't have the adverts in between. Ours has advert because they've tried only to go, they took out the most important part. There's no journalist that interviewed us. Not, you know, they always take break and cry. We lost our assets. We lost our houses. We lost everything. But because of these companies, they are very influential and very untouchable. We're not winning. Like now, as I'm talking, we've got the court interdict that you mustn't even mention the name. Like every time when I talk about the story, I don't mention the name first. Maybe I'll phone maybe Chris and then say, Chris, please, we've got this issue. Not mentioning the name. And then Chris will say, hey man, this is wrong. This is no, I'll help you. But immediately when I mention the name, he will avoid me, he will ignore. You know, it's so I've been in and out of hospital. I'm the one who started exposing this company, not because of I wanted. I was concerned as a spouse because of the treatment that these companies are doing to our own husband in the name of PEE. And I'm not even ashamed to mention the name Coca-Cola and SAB Miller. The ex-owner drivers, you know the story. Chris, you know the story. But everyone is turning a blind eye, including our president, the ex, even the current president. Our leadership, Malema, everyone. Church, council of churches, you know, so everyone is turning. At the end, we become victims. They even repossessed our truck while the payment was in advance because they said we are the ringleader. They wanted to take even our house. Even now, I'm still fighting with Standard Bank. So because of telling the truth, because of we're concerned about what is happening, people committed suicide. People, our children, they had to go for counseling because they had to drop out of tertiary, even school. The same companies that out there that they are pretending as if to be that when they are on TV, everyone admire them. They respect this because of the way they portray themselves out there. Everyone respect them. While we have the victims, Daily Maverick, they won the awards with our story. But now when I call them for follow-up story, they don't want even to talk to us. I know even today, this might be our last invite because I spoke about these companies. The way Dinesh cut off my husband when he was trying to elaborate the story, to tell the story, he said, no, we know about the story. This is an old story and it's done with. At the same time, he refers him to a journalist. No, making us fool. This is not nice. Sometimes you must put yourself inside our shoes, you know, and because we know every organization, you need cash in order for you to. But now, if now you must turn a blind eye to our cries. Now our docket in court, it's empty. Our case was dismissed with cost. We don't know how much was the cost, who paid the cost. The lawyers also took advantage of us. Everyone is taking advantage of us. I know today, as I'm talking today, tomorrow I can get the letters from their lawyers. You know, we are not protected. And then the same people promoting human rights and democracy through media. You know, sometimes I get pissed off to see this because I know this is just a lie. You choose who the culprits are. If the culprit is just Mr. Nobody or whoever, the media will entertain that. But immediately when you know, I was even shocked. We even went to Constitutional Court because we wanted to find out about our case in court. Everyone was back and diving. You know what happened when I checked on the board of the funders? The same culprits are funding our Constitutional Court. The same funding are funding our president, whoever, they've got shares, they're getting funding. Our politician, Malema, you know, he was our last hope. But what he did to us, he also turned his back on us. And then we just heard that Floyd met with SAB Miller. Without us knowing, we are the victims. We are not safe. Only God who's protecting us. And there's one thing that we'll never do. We won't take dirty money. You who's taking dirty money because you want to protect or you want to establish your company, that money, just think about those people who lost their job. We have people who were forced to drive their trucks because if you don't drive your trucks, your contract will be terminated. They have to abscond the dialysis, drive the truck with a drip on top of their heads. We've got all those, even Power FM, thank you to Power FM, but at least we did have at least follow-up stories. After that, you know what? Even now, if you can call me at my work, our phones are tapped. And then if you do, you have a call identity. You know what is my name? Sipati Coca-Cola. That is why if I call you, immediate and Tabo Coca-Cola, if immediate is you, wow. Even the same Power FM, same Daily Maverick, because now we did raise this in that gathering. And then we're no longer getting the invite. Now, my question is to you, who's taking this dirty money? Where is your conscience? What about those people who lost their lives, who are still killed? We have people who committed suicide. Everyone knows about this. But even now, if we are maybe protesting, when you call the media, they don't pitch up. Mail and Guardian, the poor journalists, our children, sometimes some of them, they took this because they had passion, because they wanted to help people, but their editors, they changed them to be devils because of they come with a story, and then when they're supposed to publish the story, they will be told, oh, no, not this one. Take out this, don't do this. Why? Because of money. Where is your conscience? Why do you have to kill us for being whistleblowers? Hence, I'm saying whistleblowers for me, it's just something that is out, I don't know, it's for the culprits, just to make them aware that there is someone who knows about your story. It's not about to help you, because at the end, you become a victim. You become a victim.
Siyatolisa kakhulu. Siyatolisa with the agony that you guys have gone through as a family, as well as a couple. Sometimes you don't know who has taken dirty money. And sometimes the difficulty also for newsrooms is that how do you decide what is a story, and when does a story stop being a story? And when does it become a dark tunnel that you just keep on running through and running through and running through, but there's no light at the end of the tunnel? And without defending any of my or any newsroom, you would know that the other issue with investigative journalism is that it requires a lot of money, and a lot of time that's spent on investigative pieces as well. Sometimes it takes months, and sometimes it does take years. So hopefully, Ma, there's somebody that's still working on your story. And hopefully at the end of the day, there will be some light and justice for you guys. Sure. I think you should live in hope. Maybe something will come. I'm so sorry. We just need to quickly get reaction from the guys here. And then we're going to take one last comment, and then we're going to wrap up. Anyone wants to respond?
We spoke 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, about this particular issue. And already the family had been trying for 3 or 4 years to get justice. I did what I did. It didn't make any difference, right? But the reality is, it's the injustice that's the issue. The media and the media's response to it, which is, well, we've heard this before, we've covered the story, we're not interested. That's concerning. The fact that money can buy silence is concerning. And I know it's no comfort to you to say that you're not alone. This is happening to lots of other people. To quote Karabo, it's complicated, but someone needs to pick up that story again. The impact that it's having on the family, the impact that it's having on the people in this room today is real, you know? I mean, that's what whistleblowing is about. It's about people, not about court cases, not about headlines. It's about people.
At the end of the day. One last question, comment right there at the back.
Good evening. I am Basitsana Laka from SABC. I'm a multimedia producer working under digital news. So to Karabo, you're not sure if you would go to the media or you're not, yeah, I think the media, there's only much the media could do, so I agree with my lady that keeping it private would do better than, the media, especially the intensity of your situation. So yeah, I think that, so just wanted to agree with that. And to the whistleblowing house, I just have a question. I think the job that you're doing is very great. The financial support, emotional support, and legal support. My question is that what time frame or how long do you offer the services? Is it until after the person is able to get back on their feet, or is it after when they won maybe the legal case, or how long do you offer this thing? I wish I could speak my language, because in my language they said "Molato ha o bone." So you still a whistleblower. So how long, because I know there's a financial support, you'll be able to support your family, school fees and everything like that. For how long does the house do that for the person? Thank you so much.
Okay, Cynthia?
Thank you for your question. Look, once you've blown the whistle, the trauma never leaves you, and it's really hard to get back on your feet. So even if there are those who got back on their feet, there's still other losses that you suffer. So the question is basically, how long do we help? Hopefully Whistleblower House is here to stay. We're 18 months old as an organization. We've partnered with other organizations like Corruption Watch, OUTA, PLOF, TARI, various others, because we can leverage off the skills. When it comes to the counseling, as long as that client needs it. When it comes to the safety mechanism, hence the reason why we're doing this app for safety. The legal side, obviously, depending on the case. So us being a new organization and cases that have come to us have long prescribed already. The newer cases that we're now taking to court depends again on the courts. So certain clients already have been waiting long just to get to a labor court appointment date. So that is a process. So we just wait, and we have to be as patient as the client for those court dates. So it's until we can wrap the case up from a legal perspective. From a financial perspective, it depends on the budget. So this year, obviously, we've received donor funding. And in our budget, we've set out an amount which we've paid for 6 months of a stipend, which we call a survival stipend for whistleblowers. Obviously, we have to see the more funding we can get, the more whistleblowers we can help, and the longer we can help them. But when you budget and you only have that amount which you've received, it obviously would have an end date. We are encouraging other mechanisms, as in finding recruitment for whistleblowers, because I think once whistleblowers can have their own dignity back by having their own jobs without having to ask for handouts, where they can reinvent themselves and start their own organizations or small businesses, that for them is what's more important. So we're trying to focus on that type of issue where we can get whistleblowers either recruited or get them into training where they can have the skills of how can they use it better to reinvent themselves, start their own organizations, earn differently, not through working only through a boss or a corporate. Thanks.
Should perhaps start like a hedge fund or something like that, so that you make sure that there's always money available, because you're always going to need whistleblowers. We've come to the end of this part of the program, which was the main part of the program. I'm going to ask the panelists to just quickly give us closing remarks. And then after that, William Bird, the Director of Media Monitoring South Africa, Media Monitoring Africa, will come up to give us the vote of thanks. Rabo, let's start off with you.
Yeah.
Have you changed your mind?
No. But this I will say, I think somebody asked about, our journalists protect professional whistleblowers versus who's a real whistleblower. And I'm looking at some of my colleagues, my former colleagues who used to work with whistleblowers. And I think what I learned from that, and a lot of the conversations we'd have, is for whistleblowers, for the person who's discovered corruption, they're doing this for the first time. They're not a skilled whistleblower. They're somebody who's discovered some kind of malfeasance. There's a responsibility, therefore, on be it journalists or other people who are providing support to those whistleblowers to really be able to set out what are the risks of you doing what you're and making sure that when that whistleblower decides to say, yes, I'm going to go ahead and do this, they're as well informed as possible. Because for a whistleblower, they're probably reacting to what they're going through, but they might not know what are the long-term consequences of what they're going to be doing. And then the difficulty, and I think is reflected in what we heard today, is the one part of whistleblowing is uncovering the story. But the whistleblower is not always going to have control over what that story is going to look like. And that's a difficult dynamic. They're not necessarily going to be able to say to Tsiri, this is exactly what I want you to say in the story, line by line. They also could be complicated as well. They're not necessarily perfect individuals who have lived perfect lives. And I think we need to accept that imperfection. But I think that there's a difficulty around whistleblowers wanting to be able to control or sort of structure the narrative versus what's possible through reporting. So I think whistleblowing is just one step in the journey of justice, but a really crucial one. Yeah.
Thanks, Eldrin, and sort of consistent with the acting that I was doing. This is not a pretense, but I'm standing for a moment, and I think we should all stand for a moment in honor of the whistleblowers, those who died, like Babita Deokaran and a bunch of others, including those who went into exile, like Ethel Williams, and then those brave ones who are still with us, like Cynthia Stimple and a couple others from PRASA, Transnet, and so on. And I really think it's important that we acknowledge that, especially those who are still among us and sitting there. We heard the story. So my pretense was not far-fetched. We heard from an actual whistleblower how this actually works. Thanks very much. I simply want to say that no matter how important whistleblowers are, how much of a hero many of them turn out to be, the reality in society is we cannot rely on whistleblowers. Our institutions have to function. We have a parliament which is meant to conduct oversight, and it fails to do so. Local governments fail to do so. Our processes have to work. It's the only way in which this is sustainable and salvageable. Secondly, our political morality and public ethics have to change. The idea, I mean, I was disturbed a couple of weeks ago. I was on my way to the township in which I grew up. It's in the south, and there was a traffic backlog. So we turned back. Later on, we got a video that there was a cash in transit heist on the highway. And the most disturbing thing was people who saw this were actually cheering those people on. Now, I mean, really, if our public ethics and our public morality is so compromised, then we as a society have to think very carefully about where we're going. That's all I wanted to say. Our institutions have to function, and we can't give up on politics.
Yeah, I don't know what to say after that, but I do think that moments like this, engagements like this are important. Even for myself as a practitioner, I think that more often than not, we need to pause and reflect on how we're playing our roles and the consequences thereof. And I think a conversation around whistleblowers, a word of caution about being kinder and guidance, all of those things. I'm seeing Bumesi Party and consequences of what happens when a story moves on and whistleblowers are left behind. We are in a rush. I think people often forget that media houses are businesses and are chasing profits too. And journalists are caught in the middle of all of that back and forth between what you think is ethically correct versus what ownership wants, chasing profit margins. So in all of that, there are things that fall to the wayside, including real life people who are affected. And I think it's one of those moments that call for reflections at all times, to pause and reflect on how we are playing our role in society. We say it's a crucial role. We need to tap back into that a little bit as we proceed. Thank you.
That's management speaking there.
Don't judge me.
Management speak.
Thanks. On my side, I just want to say there shouldn't be whistleblowers. If we lived in an equal society, if the law enforcement systems worked, government structures worked, organizations worked on an ethical platform as they should, there shouldn't be whistleblowers. There should be safe spaces in organizations to speak out in government, in societies, in churches. One should be able to speak out, and it must be dealt with. People should be held accountable. There should be consequences, management around it. So one of the deadly sins we know is greed. And I think at this point in time, when greed overrides everything, people's behavior changes, and we can see what's been happening in our society. So for me, there shouldn't be a need for whistleblowers, and we should all strive for an ethical society. Thanks.
I fully agree with what the panelists have said. I just find it quite bizarre that it's
Anti-whistleblowers.
Yeah, clearly. No, I fully agree with my colleagues. I just find it bizarre that in a country that has that avoided, to use your language, a real fuck up, right? I mean, state capture was going to destroy this country. And it was stopped because of whistleblowers, whether it's individuals like Cynthia, the people who got the Gupta hard drives. I find it ironic that after that, we still treat whistleblowers so badly. I don't understand. Politicians and the media to some extent make a lot of noise about consequences for people who are identified in the Zondo report. But we're not doing anything about the system that will stop it happening again, creating a system that protects whistleblowers, that encourages people to blow the whistle, because until we reach the kind of society Cynthia's talking about, people are going to chow. And we need whistleblowers and we need to protect them. And I would really ask the journalists here to once a week think whistleblower and think what you can do to get that item on the news agenda. It's got to be there. It's got to become a public pressure point, please.
Karabo, Cynthia, Tsidi, Ibrahim, as well as the other guy, the one who just spoke last. Thank you guys so much. And thank you guys so much for being an incredible audience, and to the people who are following the stream as well. My name, by the way, is Aldrin Simpier once again. I am on SAFM between 3 and 6 o'clock. Choose SAFM with a public broadcaster. Very important. William Bird is now coming up. William.
Thank you. Right, I think we owe a huge thanks to our excellent contestants. I mean, I thought that they brought a whole pile of nuance and complexity and ambiguity to something that often is seen in quite stark terms. Ably assisted by a fantastic game show host. Thank you so much for those very incredibly difficult scenarios. Avni also happens to be our interim board chair, so we're very proud of that. So thank you very much for being with us this evening. Thank you to our fabulous MC. You should listen to SAFM. Yeah, fabulous. I mean, you should support the public broadcaster, because without it, we don't have much chance as a democracy. And then I've got a range of thanks to think. I'm going to think of thanks. Never mind. Shit. Okay. I think as I reflect over the last 3 days, aside from exhaustion and the urgent desire for alcohol, it's very much like this evening, right? Which is that we are a country full of binaries. You've got these levels of horror, of personal trauma that sit within us, that we know of, that we're exposed to on a daily, hourly basis, right? And yet you're also exposed to the most extraordinary examples of hope and potential. So on Monday, we started with an event with children. The people that missed it, you missed out. Your life was poorer because you weren't there. Because what those children showed us was exactly the hope. And you look at young people, and despite how appallingly crap our public education system is, our children rise through that. They do the most incredible things, and they can and do the most amazing things. We know because some of the inputs that the children we work with gave are reflected in the United Nations General Comment Report. Like, that's pretty amazing. Children from South Africa in there on a global body, right? Then we move to the evening, looking at media sustainability. Will it survive? Democracy, etc. Again, an equally damning, depressing picture. We looked at AI. The solution, the short summary that came out of AI is the future is weird. It's bizarre. There's things there that are so potentially amazing and fantastic, and yet equally so unbelievably fucking horrifying. Like, we really should be quaking in our boots about what's coming. Journalists, I mean, their jobs, if they thought they were bad now, wait till AI comes and takes over most of what they do, right? It's coming, and it's not 10 years away, 3-5 years away, it's going to hit, right? Whether we address our digital divide or otherwise. And then we looked at online harms and what's happening there. And again, we've seen examples just this week, right? A very contested example on social media, and a number of contested examples on social media where we simply don't know if something's real or not. The AI is already so good that it's almost impossible even for experts to determine if it's real or if it's not real. And that means that your last line of defense is the media, with all their faults, with all their limitations. The role that they fulfill is fundamentally a good one, and fundamentally one that helps protect our democracy. And then you move on to this other thing, which is, the public, they're apathetic, they don't do these things. These young people, they're not interested in voting, they're not political. And maybe that's true of some young people, but I can tell you that it's not true of a whole bunch of other young people. And I know because I work with about 15 or 16 of them. I have the most amazing bloody team. They look at me, I'm the old fart in the organization. They're all significantly younger than I am, but they're all the most incredible young people that you can possibly imagine. So I'm going to call my team out. I want them to stand because they need to stand, because all of them have given of their time significantly over the last 3 days to make this series of events happen. Lister, Zola, Nsako, Pagamile, stand please. Mtabi Singh, Tombi, Nsizi, Tumelo, Musa, Jacques, Sharks, stay standing. I want you to stay standing. George and Wella. Now, we've also been ably assisted because our people at MMA are so fabulous that we draw people in. And there are a number of our lovely friends and special people here this evening. You know who you are. And we've also been able to draw in some of our fabulous partners from SOS who've been with us all 3 days and have been doing amazing work. A huge debt of gratitude to Noor and Uyanda. Thank you very much. We really, really appreciate you. And then, yeah, you can give them an applause. Oh, see, we've even got some of our developers here this evening who build our tools and make them function. Democracy depends on you as well. No pressure, but get it wrong and we'll kill you. So I am going to call out because there's a special group of people that I left out of that initial list that have been working extra hard over the last few days. So by that, I'm calling on Aya, Talent, Browser, and Handle, otherwise known as Nomshado. Can you come forward? I want you four to come forward. Stand here. Stand. So these 4 lovely, amazing people, We've got some small token of thanks for you. Wella will present it to you. And then just before we close off, so there's no more events tomorrow, thank goodness. But there is dinner. Is it down there? Handle, where's dinner? Down. Okay, dinner's down the hill. So you roll down the hill and there's dinner, there's food, there's drink. It's going to be fabulous. And we've also got the coolest band. So please make sure you stay and enjoy your evening with us. But there's one other thing. Oh, no, there are two other things. There's a form at the back. There's a QR code. The only way we can make these events better is with feedback, honest or otherwise. I mean, you can say lovely things because that'll really help a lot. But other feedback is very welcome too. So please just go scan it with your mobile phone. Spend some minutes while you're appreciating the fact that all of this has been produced for you and you've been able to enjoy it. And think fondly of the German ambassador and the German embassy and the MDDA and especially the SABC. Okay, last thing. Yesterday was our dear colleague Jacques' birthday, and today it's Browser's birthday. So we're gonna sing happy birthday and then wrap it up. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday, dear Browser. Happy birthday. Right, panel, you can stay for a group picture. Everyone else, dinner is served, drinks, let the fun begin. Thank you.